One thing we do at AthletesCAN that we started a few years ago was a president-elect position. And again, this is just making sure that we're grooming the person who will be running part of the organization, running the board at least, grooming that person over the years so they don't just all of a sudden walk into this role. It's an important role, and when it's done right, it can be amazing, as Eric has been doing for the past 3 years. Eric has been incredible, and he has been working with Josh is the president-elect, so he's been working with Josh, coaching him on how to be the next president of AthletesCAN for 3 years. So the risk this year is that we don't vote for Josh. He's not here, so it's difficult for him. So one of the things we did is Josh prepared a video just to say, you know, hi, I'm Josh, and I'm sorry I can't be here. And then there's another video, speeches during the election and all this stuff. But it is important, I think, that we hear from Josh briefly. So you guys got that?
Hey AthletesCAN, it's Josh Vandervies here from Bocce. So sorry that I couldn't make it to this year's forum in Calgary. I'm really bummed. I see that there's an amazing agenda for the weekend, and you guys are probably well on your way to pounding through it. I'm competing at the 2014 World Championships in Beijing right now, so that's why I couldn't make it. And you know, I guess that's why we're all here, right? The AthletesCAN is secondary. Sport is the first deal. But I'm really lucky that first of all that I am competing away in China, but also that I enjoy the confidence of the board to be the current AthletesCAN president-elect. So I'm really excited to move into the president's role of AthletesCAN next year in the wake of Eric Peterson's great leadership. And there are some exciting things on the horizon for AthletesCAN. I hope you guys are having fun and learning a lot. And hopefully the hospitality lounge is going strong. But you know, Kevin Smith-Worthylake, he's the new bocce rep there, so hopefully he's playing some hospitality lounge bocce with you guys, because I won't be there to do it. You know, I really believe in AthletesCAN. I'll just end my quick message to you guys telling you that. And I think that AthletesCAN is really an essential part of the Canadian sport landscape. We play a leadership role, but we also play an important performance role in taking the day-to-day, you know, athlete grind of training and competing and making sure that our voice is actually heard. And I think that is incredibly powerful. And as president in the coming years, I can't wait to leverage that even more when it comes to areas like conflict in sport, anti-doping policy, funding, and the other important issues that affect whether or not we're on the podium. So enjoy yourselves in Calgary, and please reach out to me anytime.
All right, so that was more of a radio piece from Josh. Josh sounds a little more flat than usual in that video. We actually debated, we're like, wow, Josh, you're a little tired there. And he was legitimately tired. He was on his way to Beijing, and we kind of just grabbed him from the airplane and forced him to shoot that video that you didn't see but listened to. So there is another one of Josh being a little more lively than in the middle of a very long travel day. Anyway, so again, if you have any questions about that and what I tried to explain about that whole election process, don't be shy. Come up to any of us and ask, and we'll be able to explain it a little better. You'll hear more of it throughout the weekend. But I do encourage you to corner your candidates, board candidates, especially in the hospitality lounge, and get them to talk, because it is important, as you're going to see over this weekend. Dinner, we've obviously been a little delayed. We have a couple sessions to go through, but we'll get to dinner, I think, right on time in the end. It's all going to be very serendipitous, so that's a good thing. Jazz is going to come up and talk a little bit about where AthletesCAN sees you and why you're here, and then we're going to have a wicked orientation session. Wicked awesome orientation session.
Here, I'll take that. Welcome. We're so happy to have you guys here. This has been, a full year of planning for us and looking forward to everybody, coming together in Calgary. So welcome. We're so happy to have you here. So some of you will know more and some of you will know less about AthletesCAN and our role in the system. And that's what we're really going to spend some time this evening talking about. We're going to talk about the importance of the athlete voice and the role that AthletesCAN plays on your behalf, and certainly the role that you have as athletes, and certainly embracing your voice to create positive and meaningful change in small and meaningful ways throughout your sport and all the other areas that you're active in within your communities and elsewhere. And we're going to talk about kind of, what to expect this weekend. For many of you in this room, it's your first time you've come to Forum. So you don't have that experience to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And so there's probably a lot of questions, I don't know about athlete agreements, or I don't know about team select. How much do I need to know about this? Well, you know what? We're going to have a really good number of workshops where we're going to be able to provide you with really tangible skills and tools and takeaways that can hopefully empower you to continue to fuel your performance by providing meaningful feedback, that strong, responsible voice back to your sports. And so in order to do that, in order to provide a bit of context in terms of what AthletesCAN is about, we've got a 4-minute video to share with you. No? We'll share it with you tomorrow. It's a good video. And I don't feel like acting it out. Maybe later in the hospitality suite. So what I would like to do now is introduce you to Laurie Johnstone. Laurie Johnstone has been with our organization since the very beginning. This is her 22nd Forum. She is a Forum veteran. And Laurie is very, very special to AthletesCAN. Laurie has been here right from the very beginning. She's been active not only within our organization, but within all levels of the Canadian sport community. She currently works, she's a passionate advocate for the grassroots development of sport in the province of New Brunswick, but she's worked with the federal government as assistants to former secretaries of states of sport, past president of AthletesCAN, and numerous other roles. And so we're going to welcome Laurie up to help us share the story of AthletesCAN. So before we start to get our hands dirty and talk about athlete leadership and all the other great things that are on the program, it's nice to take a step back and really understand why we're here, how this all came together, and really share our story with you. So Laurie, come on up. Yeah, it's right there.
You guys can do this. Okay. So I'm going to sit here. Spill water on my lap. Talk to Laurie. Like a fireside chat with cowboys.
Cowboy fireside chat. So, to get us started, Laurie, I was wondering if you could give us a bit of background about how AthletesCAN came to be, our story, where we began.
Where we began.
Yeah.
So in order to really have a good sense of where we are and where we're going, it does help to have a sense of where we've been and how we got there. And so the story kind of begins, there was once a time when there were athletes. No, a really important kind of part in our history was in 1988, just show of hands, how many of you were born in 1988 or later? Born in 1988 or later?
I'm going to pretend.
All right. So in 1988, there was this really fast guy who won a gold medal in Seoul in the 100 meters. His name was Ben Johnson. And he had his kind of moment of glory, and then there was this positive test that led to kind of a collective sense of shame. And there was the Canadian sports system came under a lot of scrutiny, and it led to the Dublin Inquiry, which was this great big microscope that was going to look at what was going on in sport. And at the time, the Athletes' Council of the Canadian Olympic Association, which it was then known, wanted to be able to make a statement, and it was difficult because it was a committee within another organization, and these athletes wanted to be able to have an independent voice. They really wanted an independent voice, and they didn't have that option. So a group of athletes, including athletes who were part of the council, they were meeting in Toronto around a kitchen table, and as a group, and this included Ann Peel and Dan Thompson and Heather Clark, Didi Laframboise, and many others, and they, Charmaine Crooks, they all were talking about this need for an independent voice. And so in 1992, Ann Peel and Dan Thompson they co-founded and with a provisional board started the Canadian Athletes Association, which it was then known. And a year later, in 1993, a whole bunch of athlete representatives, including myself, I was the athlete rep for racquetball, we came together, and it was the first AthletesCAN forum in 1993. What was right away, we knew there was something really, really special. Can we say I was like 10? I was a prodigy in the sport. No, we came together, and it was really amazing because yes, there was this whole issue around doping in sport, but there were all these other issues that athletes they had suddenly found a community where they understood each other. They were dealing with selection issues and criteria and training conditions and funding, and if there was enough support in sport. So suddenly we were dead. Suddenly the mic went dead.
Suddenly the mic worked. Or not. Or did. Good? Yes.
Yes. So just to finish that off, there was an incredible energy there where all these athlete representatives, at that point, many who had not been elected, because that was before the time of really athletes being elected to their roles, but by one way or another, athletes had come together, and it was just this incredible sense of energy and power and empowerment that there would be a voice and an independent voice for athletes.
And so can you talk more to how that community has come together and evolved over the years, and what that community means to AthletesCAN and the athletes?
Mm-hmm. I'll start by saying that in looking back over the 22 years, there's some things that have really stood kind of as milestones for why AthletesCAN was successful in the beginning and what has kind of kept it going. And the first I would say is its commitment to inclusiveness and equity. So when the athletes were coming together, it wasn't just the Olympic athletes, or it wasn't just a group of Paralympic athletes. We had Olympic athletes, Paralympic athletes, athletes from sports that competed at senior world championship levels. We had First Nations, Aboriginal peoples coming, athletes who were competing in a variety of sports. Pan American Games, Commonwealth Games, there's some unique sports that are played in each of those major games as well. And so this was this place where everyone was treated the same. It didn't matter whether you were a medalist or a non-medalist, which games you were competing in, or if you were competing in a games. As well, and more recently with the LGBTIQ community and the work that's taking place there, AthletesCAN really has the credibility to be able to speak about a safe and a welcoming and inclusive environment because it's lived and breathed it right from its first days. So that is for me one of the milestones of its success and why it works. The second thing would be around, and I don't know that in the beginning it was that they understood that it would later become supported by research. So in my day job, I'm a policy analyst, and I think about how research and real life kind of blend. And back when it was first forming, I don't think we knew that by intentionally building on, there's 3 basic psychological needs, that if you build on these needs, you have the foundation for positive change. And AthletesCAN was really doing it intuitively and intentionally. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So the whole concept of being athlete-centered, it was the basis of the organization. So this idea that we are the active participants in and not the subjects of decisions that are made about us and that concern us. So this idea of being the active participants in really speaks to competence. So this idea of competence, that we have value, and it wasn't just our value as athletes, but that we had value as humans for the range of skills and strengths and talents that we have. So that was this sense of competence. This whole point of having a voice, so autonomy. So competence and autonomy, a voice and choices, and that we were actively participating in the decisions that affected us, that we wanted to be able to take independent stances and speak to issues that mattered. So being able to influence the landscape. And thirdly, about relatedness. So the importance of meaningful social connections. And this organization was founded on this affinity that we had as athletes, and then later when we retired as still being part as alumni, of this group where we could learn from each other and support each other, and where our contributions were valued. So this basis, this forming this organization around these key needs, psychological needs, has really benefited the organization. And so often you'll talk to people and they say, it's a special group. It's special because it does those things. It's a place where we build trust and have meaningful conversations. So that's the second part. And the third part in looking back is that it was really a strength-based approach. So yes, we came and we've got lots of needs. We've got lots of things that were going wrong, and we were frustrated and we were angry and we wanted change. But rather than getting mired down by the negativity of what was wrong, there was this natural movement to look for, okay, so what are we going to do about it? Because we do want to excel. We do want things to go right. So how are we going to create those optimal conditions to make that happen so that we are thriving and not just surviving? And so this strength-based approach was really, really important. And so we know now internationally that it's called an asset-based approach, when you really build on the assets that we have. That's how, in the beginning stages, there was an athlete who had some ideas around marketing. She came up with a marketing book for athletes. We had the athlete leadership workbook that came out of the experiences and expertise that athletes had. So we just pooled what we had and kept building on that. Even the change of name. So the Canadian Athletes Association shifted to become AthletesCAN in 1996. And at the time, sitting around that table and we were talking about potential names, the reason AthletesCAN stuck as the name was because it was a play on words. So CAN, short for Canada, but it was also athletes can do it. We can do this. We can change the landscape of Canadian sport. And so it was a play on words, but it stuck. And I know the wordplay wasn't there in French, but we said, you know what, it works. Athletes can, absolutely. So those are kind of three things that I think have really been part of the strength of AthletesCAN.
So you've been to 22 forms out of 22 forms, and you're only 32. It's a miracle.
It really is.
You look 32. And anyway, sorry. But for someone, you're the only person who has been to every single form. Laurie usually co-hosts this with Mike, who can't be here. He is one of the most dynamic people I've ever met and has a very good reason for not being here.
We can't tell.
Yeah, period. But he has a great reason for not being here, and he's heartbroken because his first time ever at Forum was here in 2000. So this format, this interview format, is our solution to not having incredibly dynamic Mike here. But the question I would like to ask, because you have been to more forums than anyone else, is, I don't remember the question I wrote. Given your 23 years at Forum, can you tell us about the impact that AthletesCAN has had, because you've been involved the whole time, and what you've seen come out of Forum itself?
Okay. So it became a training ground as much as any other training ground, this whole concept of having athlete leaders. And so coming together, it was a chance to practice skills, and so to become effective so how do you run a meeting? How do you look at a budget? What does that mean? So we basically had to practice what we were preaching. If we were saying athletes were going to be the active participants in these processes, well then I guess we'd better figure out how to do this well and be effective at it. So in part there was this evolution of developing tools for athletes to use. And so that was part of it. That's the impact is in how we've evolved and how athletes have become very effective. And so there's AthletesCAN alumni who play very significant roles in Canadian sport and beyond. And this was their training ground. This was where they developed some of those skills. There's impacts in terms of all kinds of decisions that were taken. So whether they're policy-related decisions or increased funding, carding increased a number of times through the work of AthletesCAN. Processes, so major games, the idea of choosing a flag bearer and involving athletes in that process, or having an ombudsperson who could speak to issues and advocate on behalf of athletes at major games. These were processes that AthletesCAN was involved in. The whole concept of having an alternate dispute resolution mechanism, that was part of our work of advocating because we wanted fair sport. A lot of the work that happened around the ethical pursuit of sport is also work that we contributed to. Recognition, support for athletes, continually calling for entrepreneurial ways of supporting athletes or corporate partnerships to support athletes. And you look at some of the incredible partnerships that exist now and the opportunities that athletes have to advance their careers, to extend their athletic career, but also to have a career that will, post athlete. The issues that athletes deal with, so recognizing mental health as an issue for athletes, both while they're competitive and in transition. Sports science. Canadian sports centres didn't exist when we first started. We were advocating for a more streamlined approach to better approaches to sports science and the professionalization of coaching. Just seeing what some other examples would be. Advocating to members of parliament, the outreach that takes place on Parliament. I was put in a really interesting position where I had a chance to meet with an incoming Secretary of State for Amateur Sport. I was the chair, and we'd presented to the Mills Committee, and I'd done that on behalf of AthletesCAN, and then we'd had this person we'd met again when they became Secretary of State, and I'd invited the person to speak at Forum. So I get a call. And instead of just, I'll come to Forum, it was, how would you like to be a special advisor? And I was non-partisan, which means I wasn't there for a political purpose. I was there on behalf of athletes. And so as I retired out of the position of being chair, I had the unique opportunity for a couple of years to advocate not only for athletes, but for Canadian sport to government and see those processes. And it was an incredible learning experience. And then some other athletes also ended up, so Carla Qualtrough had a similar kind of experience where we were at the decision-making level on a daily basis and seeing. So the inception of the World Anti-Doping Agency, we were involved in doing that, in creating that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. The championing, here's one that's two that are really important. Championing physical literacy and quality daily physical education. And we might think, well, what's the connect? Athletes saw the obvious connect, why we should be advocating for that. And athlete social responsibility is another key area where AthletesCAN has played a role in terms of saying, athletes, you know what, our performances are better. And it was a former board member of AthletesCAN who her research talked about when we are doing things to support others, it actually benefits us. It actually benefits our performance. It's performance enhancing. So in all kinds of different areas, we can see the impact of AthletesCAN and the work that it's done. Cautionary note is that we can't become complacent because we have seen advances, and then I don't want to be the person up here going, well, it was pretty good in our day. There are some things where I see where we're not doing as well as we were, where we had worked really hard to advance some things, and we're not there anymore. And some other things that we only imagined and we've surpassed. So it's important that we don't become complacent, that we don't sit on our heels and go, yeah, we've had a good run. It speaks to why AthletesCAN is relevant, has to stay relevant, and has to really continue to push and be innovative and not accept the status quo, because it's not good enough.
Well, I think you answered the second to last question, so which is good, and was basically, what do we need to do? What does AthletesCAN need to do? You can touch on that again if you'd like, but the other thing is, what advice do you have for people at Forum? Like Jazz said before, we have more first-timers maybe than ever before, or certainly
A lot of you are here for the first time.
Yeah, lots of first-timers, and whose first time is it here at Forum?
Wow.
Good, yeah, sweet. Awesome, yeah, welcome and congratulations. The first step on a very long road of awesomeness. So I guess the question would be, what advice do you have for people who are here on their first time and people like me who've been here long and now look tired and old and whatever?
One thing that I'll touch on from the first part, so I think it's really important. So debates come up all the time about, are we doing enough? Are we doing too much? From the beginning, we've talked about, should it be a union? Should it be this? Should it be that? Are we relevant? How do we become more relevant? How do we stay current? Those are healthy discussions to have, and we should never shy away from exploring what our options are, and always pushing to ensure that we are relevant, that we are effective, and that we continue to support creating those optimal conditions for athletes to succeed, both on and off the playing field. So I'll just say that it's something we have to always be striving for. Advice. Okay, advice. This is a really unique opportunity that you have and that we have together. So we have the chance to develop skills, to continue to work on our toolkit, and it doesn't matter whether it's your first time or my 22nd time. I will learn something new here, guaranteed, through our conversations, through the dialogue that we have. And so that's an incredible opportunity that we have. We will have opportunities to express our opinions. Perhaps you're going to be talking about issues that you're bringing forth on behalf of your teammates. And so you have a chance to really work on some of those things and either develop solutions here or figure out who you need to talk to or what you need to be able to work towards the solutions that you need for your sport and for your athletes and for others that you represent. And it's an incredible opportunity because you are now part of this ever-growing network. And at some point I need to calculate over 22 years how many athlete representatives that represents, because it's an incredible group of people. And it's an incredible group of people to know and to have had the privilege to work with in one way or another, because just so many extraordinary things happen. And it's not just the athletic performances. It's not just what we overcome. It's just the power of the dreams and the resources that we all have to make those dreams come true. So you're tapped into that network, and that's an incredible place to be. There are barriers to being an athlete representative, and I won't try to blow sunshine. I mean, there are days, this isn't a lot of fun, right? I mean, you're confronting tough issues, and you're put in difficult positions. You now have a whole bunch of people and an organization that has your back. And so whether that's providing support and services and programs, resources, there's going to be some fabulous resources that you're going to know about before the end of the weekend if you don't now. And both that are offered within this organization and through lots of different partnerships. So I think it's really important to know that you have a lot of resources. And what's really cool, I've got to just take you back for just a real quick second. So back in the day, if you wanted quick communication, and I really do have to go grab the phone, so I'll be right back.
Dead air. I got nothing. Hi. Sing. Yeah, that would be torture. Cats. Wow.
So back in the day, you have to think when we wanted something to go really fast, we used thermal fax paper. That was pretty cool. And then we got really excited when some board members, we had our own fax machines. We were getting pretty good. And then it was really exciting, but also kind of terrifying when we started communicating through email. Email, yeah. Because we were a pretty passionate group, and so the conversations, there's always been room to disagree here, but to do it in ways that are respectful. It's really important. So you're going to have lots of debates. And so we before we really understood the protocols around email and that you don't convey emotions well through email, let's just say there were some pretty passionate and sometimes difficult conversations that took place through email correspondence. And then there was this whole notion of the web. And eventually, web pages, and now we're into dashboards and all kinds of social media and really cool stuff. But we didn't always have that. And now we have this amazing tool, right? We've got smartphones that can do it all. So you can actually look up the resources for AthletesCAN and look at videos and talk to each other by video. But in the day, we were pretty proud when the first AthletesCAN phone came out. This baby right here. We were really excited about this one. Yeah, yeah. You could almost do like, well, you could have a minor workout when you're traveling. iPhone, yeah, we're almost back to that size. Now the second one was really cool because guess what it had? It had a pull-up antenna. Yeah. So, so this just tells you about the evolution of the tools that we have to use. So it's a joke, but the idea here is use the tools at your disposal. And so whether it's through some of the things you're going to learn about over the course of the weekend, the tools that are there and the new technologies that exist, there are so many things that are there to help you in your role. There are templates, there are programs, there are services, there are people. And so we can all be connected to each other and on a moment's notice, and whether through it's a tweet or whether it's through an email or however we're communicating. If we have an issue, you can get support. If you don't know the answer, you can find it. If you want to communicate information to your teammates, it's a lot easier now. And so build on that. I would just say take advantage. The vantage point of having been to 22 years of these is I realize that it can change your life. In the course of the next couple of days, you are going to change. You are going to grow, and just take advantage of it because you don't know where it's going to take you, but it will absolutely be worth it.
Thank you. So to close, and that's a hard act to follow after Lori has provided such a good story on the evolution of AthletesCAN, really take to heart the advice that she's giving you. You know, this weekend, I've been to my fair share of forums as well, and the amazing thing to watch over the course of the weekend is the group come together. And so, you know, you see the group come together at the start of the weekend, and, you know, everyone's hesitant and a little standoffish as they're getting to know each other. And by the end, there's such cohesion and such joy and such passion around what we all can do, and really embracing that community that you've been able to develop over the weekend. So really take to heart the advice that Lori has provided, because you do have endless assets sitting in front of you this weekend that are at the ready for you to embrace, to not only build yourself as an individual, but build yourself in ways that can contribute back to your sport and any other area that you're active in.
We do have one more piece of advice.
She's not done yet.
Well, there is one important. I feel a sense of responsibility because back in '97 we introduced the hospitality suite. And so I do feel a sense of responsibility, and I am also channeling Mike. So you have to imagine lawyer Mike, and he'll do his thing. But there are rules of engagement around the hospitality suite, because we do talk about it a lot, and there are certain expectations around it. Absolutely take advantage of the opportunity to network. If there's a lot of new people here, make sure that no one's left alone. Like, look after each other. We've got each other's backs. Take time to have conversations. Reach out to someone who may not know 10 other people in the room because they may not have met them at a major games or at another event, or they may not train in the same place. So take advantage of that. Play hard, it's fine, but we're here to work, and keep in mind why we're here. So no matter how much fun you're having, and that's great, make sure that you show up for the sessions, and that you show up on time and be here for the purposes that we've come together for. So Mike does it in a much more fun, or maybe it's more serious way. It's more dramatic for sure, but it's just keep in mind, absolutely take advantage of it, but also remember we work hard too.